Pete Thamel of Sports Illustrated. Is that as proper an introduction as you would hope to receive here on the Rich Eisen Show?
I'm actually going to hang up and retire 1-0 and never go on your show again. That was quite an introduction. I don't think that was impressive. I can tell all your listeners right now that if they spent $1 on their office pool, it's one more dollar than I've spent. So for all that,
there you go.
For all that good prognostication,
no, you're a professional.
Little to show for it other than radio glory, I guess.
You're a prideful professional, Pete. I asked you for some upsets. You said this is the way I filled out my bracket, and every damn near one of them hit. Does that mean that you are, if you are in some form of a pool, are you winning it right now, Pete?
I am not in any pool.
Okay.
I just literally did not enter. The end of conference tournament selection Sunday into the first weekend is one of the busier stretches of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I end up in one, you get a couple emails, and I filled out a bracket that I had to fill out because we had a quote unquote experts bracket for SI. So I filled one out and took a picture of it and sent it into the office where it is likely somewhere online right now. But other than that, I'm like much like the student athletes. I'm playing for the good of the game.
I love it. So who do you have?
Happy to be doing it.
How far did you have Michigan State going, however, Pete?
Oh, I'm going to the Final Four. I mean, you can just never pick against Tom Izzo. If you're doing this in the long term, it's like an investment strategy. Picking against Tom Izzo is not going to go very well. Give Middle Tennessee credit. I mean, they played an unbelievable, unflinching game. It was a blast to watch. Like, that was one of those games where you can't even think about your bracket. You just sort of have to enjoy the moment. So I did not pick them to win the title. I did pick Carolina to win the title, which I think I told your listeners. I just felt like Carolina was the best team. I think the big takeaway from these 4 days, and
yes,
I believe I said this on your show, is that certainly there were upsets, but when there's no funny names, there's no surprises in terms of brands and established programs when you look at the 16 teams left. For all the chaos of the first 2 games and really all the parity in the regular season, the cream certainly rose. I mean, you can't characterize Gonzaga or Syracuse considering the success they've had for decades at those programs as any kind of surprise.
Pete Thamel of Sports Illustrated joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. We can go in so many directions here. So I'll just go with the poll question we've been asking my viewers and listeners today. Chris Brockman, you want to hit that to Pete Thamel? That's at richeisenshow.com.
Hey, Pete, we were at Syracuse at the same time, by the way, so go Orange.
All right, how about
most
that?
Shocking moment from the weekend, UNI's collapse, the Wisconsin buzzer beater, Michigan State's upset, or your busted bracket?
So take the bracket out of it. Which one? The Northern Iowa collapse, the Wisconsin buzzer beater, or obviously what happened to Michigan State? What's your answer there?
It's got to be that Northern Iowa collapse. That was literally the biggest collapse in the history of college basketball.
Unbelievable.
Think about how many thousands and thousands of games there are every single year. And for the confluence of events for that to happen, Chris would appreciate that our friend from Syracuse, Carter Blackburn, got to call that one. For that to happen, I mean, I had stopped paying attention. There was no reason to continue to pay attention. And then they hit the full court home run pass, which is like an unbelievably gutsy coaching call at that point.
Yep.
Great execution. And then they still blow it. I still have not wrapped my mind around that happening, how it did, when it did. I mean, it just my heart bleeds for Ben Jameson and those Northern Iowa kids. I mean, they've just played unbelievable for 79 minutes.
Right. I mean, and the thing about it too, Pete, is that Indiana wasn't hacking Northern Iowa and forcing them to go to the line with them missing free throws. That didn't happen a single time. Yeah, Texas A&M didn't do that to UNI a single time.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anything like the confluence of errors that happened for something like that.
It was spontaneous combustion, the perfect storm of awful and heartbreak. You just can't overstate. I'm sure Nate Silver, someone much smarter than I, we don't
Right.
get a lot of math degrees out of Syracuse, could come up with the statistical improbability of blowing a lead like that. But to blow a lead like that on a stage like that in the manner in which they did it, it was almost like they handed them 3 layups practically. That was that was unbelievable. I'm still like, it still hasn't quite sunk in that all of that happened, like you said, in the compliments that it did. It's absolutely shocking.
Pete Thamel here on the Rich Eisen Show from Sports Illustrated. After he was the one who told you VCU, Little Rock, Stephen F. Austin, Yale, go for those in your bracket. Joining me here, getting set for the second week. But before we turn the page, is it fair to say the Pac-12 got the biggest black eye over the first 4 days of this tournament?
Yeah, no question. I think I told your listeners, too, to stay away from the Pac-12 and the SEC, which right until that Northern Iowa finish looked okay. But, yeah, no, look, I didn't think the Pac-12 was very good all year, Rich. A lot of times you got to judge teams by, like, their high-end talent when they're going to go in the tournament matchup, and there really aren't any tantalizing NBA prospects in that whole league in the Pac-12. You take Arizona, who I saw get blown off the floor in Providence this weekend. Like, they don't have anyone who's going to get drafted. So, and you looked at Oregon State; they were a complete paper tiger. All their success had come at home. That was them getting a 7 seed was completely baffling to me. And then there's some bad luck. USC plays pretty darn well. That was probably one of the second biggest choke job of the tournament. What they did in the last 2 minutes against Providence, missing free throws, and then, I mean, I could have made the layup the kid made to end the game off that out of bounds under. So, there's always a few factors that go into it. But if you watched the Pac-12, and then Cal has the assistant coach suspended for fired for the sexual harassment, and then their best player breaks his hand.
Well, you also have too, Pete. You had UCLA, which didn't make the tournament, didn't make anything. Yeah. Where Steve Alford says, I'm giving back my 1 year contract extension because of how poorly we did, which make no sense to me, unless he thinks he's. Well, what does that accomplish?
Well, there was a lot of buzz. There was planes flying over Westwood, which would be a literal buzz,
right,
calling for Steve Alford's job. And there's a lot of sort of unrest in the UCLA community, all of whom think it should be 1968 still, and UCLA should make 10 straight Final Fours or whatever uncomparable things John Wooden accomplished there. But when you're listening to the agent community and you're listening to the coaching community, the big question during conference tournament week was, are they going to fire Alford? Are they going to fire Alford? Institutionally at UCLA, I don't think there was that same momentum for that, but I do think that it would have been a $10 million buyout, which is real money even in a place like LA. And he did make consecutive Sweet 16s. Now they were kind of backdoor Sweet 16s, but they all still kind of count the same on the ledger. But he is generally not popular there as a human being. Which, if you followed Steve Alford's career, he's generally been not popular as a human being in other places that he's coached. They've been easier to get away with it. I don't remember when he got hired. There was a spate of negative publicity from a case involving a sexual assault of one of his players when he was at Iowa, and that got everything off to a really bad foot. He didn't handle it well, and he's just never been endeared and beloved in Westwood. So I do think when I saw that gesture to give it back, I do think there was a little bit of like, let's try to appease the populace who really haven't quite embraced me yet. That said, it's a results-driven business. They have an excellent recruiting class coming in. Lorenzo Ball is a name for your listeners to remember. Coming out of Southern California is a dynamic prospect. They've really done a good job recruiting the Adidas-sponsored AAU program, the Compton Magic, out of Southern California. So in terms of players, which is really what college basketball ultimately comes down to, they should be fine in the future. But that certainly, if they get off to a slow start again next year, the planes will continue buzzing over Westwood, and the dark clouds will hang there as well.
Last one for you. Which matchup this Thursday or Friday intrigues you the most? Give me a good Sweet 16 one that you think we...
That's a good question. There's an ambulance going by me here, so I apologize for that.
No, that's for my bracket.
Yeah. You know what I like? Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I really like Oregon-Duke. I saw Duke live twice in Providence this weekend, and boy, oh boy, is Brandon Ingram a sight to see. And I really didn't have an appreciation for him until I saw him in person. Grayson Allen, obviously, is your sort of quintessential, gritty, talented, productive Duke player. And then there's not a whole lot after that for Duke, to be quite honest. So Dana Altman, I think, is one of the best and really most underrated coaches in all of college basketball. All the guy has done at Creighton and everywhere else he's been is just win and win and win. And it'll be interesting to see how Oregon, with a better 1-8 roster, can exploit Duke. I really think that will be sort of the fascinating chess match for me, because I'd imagine in Vegas Duke will be favored because, quite frankly, they're Duke. But I really think Duke Oregon is going to be a chess match between two pretty good sideline maestros.
And that's a game Thursday here in Southern California and Anaheim. Thanks again, Pete. And on behalf of all my listeners and viewers who listen to you and then put those schools in their bracket, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. No, my pleasure, Rich. Enjoyed it, bud.
You bet. That's Sports Illustrated's Pete Thamel at SI Pete Thamel if you want to give him a follow.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.